already is. The question is, are we building the kind of skills that let us thrive in it? Sorry, microphone keeps disconnecting. Yeah. Please, can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, all right, welcome, Joel. Welcome. All right. So today joining us is Joel and Jeffrey. And I wouldn't waste much time. I'll just let them introduce themselves to us. So, Jeff, can you take us on the lead?
Yeah. So my name is Jeffrey Graft Henson. I'm a product designer. I transitioned from electrical engineering to product design 5 years ago, and that's been my stronghold ever since. I also co-founded the Design Junkies and helped build it to one of the thriving creative communities in Ghana, alongside creating FitContour as well. And currently, I'm building Bold Shift, a community for African viewers. That's what I want to call it. And basically changing the narrative when it comes to African talent in here. So that's pretty much me. And yeah,
All right,
so
great. Nice. Okay, so Joel.
Hi, thanks, Hubert, Jeffrey. Happy New Year, everyone. I see a lot of note takers in the meeting. So if you're a human being in the call, just drop your location for me, like wherever you are, city and country. If you're outside Ghana, add add the country as
In the
well.
comment section.
In the comment section, in the chat section, basically. I want to see more humans. Fantastic. So basically, quick fun fact: Jeffrey and I attended the same high school, Accra
Wow.
Academy, the best high school you could ever find on the surface of the air. Yeah, if you don't agree, you can meet me outside. Catch me outside. Anyway, so over the past 10 years, I've transitioned careers 5 times. Started off my career as a pharmacist, went into sales, did recruitment, and so on and so forth. And over the past 10 years, I've been able to build like a unique perspective to talent development. So you're talking about being able to give, some expert advice from a career coach's perspective, as a job seeker myself, as a recruiter, and also as a hiring manager. So I love to engage in these spaces to share my own perspective about things. I'm a lover of doing stuff, and I love that Jeffrey also loves that as well. So all the things that you'll be hearing from both of us is literally going to be things that have been tried and tested, right? Not theoretical. So looking forward to sharing my experiences with you. Currently, actively, I work with Actinet as a senior product manager. It's a health tech company based in Switzerland. That also, I'm building Mandi, which is basically an AI career coach for students. That's where we've been focusing our efforts on. So happy to share a lot of learnings, insights, and also learn from you as well. And I look forward to a very engaging audience. Thanks for sharing your location in the chat as well.
All right, great. So please, just in case if the call drops off or anything, please stick around. Ghana, sometimes network can be a problem. All right, so just jump straight in. If you have any questions, the chat is opened. You can share your questions as the conversation goes on. Please try as much as possible to mute yourself. We don't want any noise coming in to disrupt the conversation. Thank you. All right, so we are going to go straight into it. I have a couple of questions here that I'll be asking the people who we have as hosts. Okay, so Joe, I'll start with you. We are talking about the theme here is recognizing the gap between local success and global readiness. So many people hit a ceiling where local success doesn't translate internationally. There is often a moment of realization, sometimes uncomfortable, that changes everything. So my question is, describe a specific moment when you realized your local approach wouldn't work globally, and what exactly did you have to unlearn, and what triggered the awareness. But before you answer this question, let's tackle the topic first. What? How would you define a global talent?
Uh, that's interesting. This feels like a job interview. Describe a moment where, anyway, but I think a global talent is, um, simply put, in my opinion, someone who's able to work without borders, right? So your career trajectory, your growth is not defined by geography. So you're able to move from, say, Ghana to the UK or to US, and it does not disrupt your income flow or anything of that sort. That's how I think of it. It's when I look at the 10 global talents. And I mean, as we move along, we'll be able to delve deeper. But I'm also sure that Jeffrey has his own thoughts and opinions about this as well.
Yeah, Jeff.
His camera just went off, so I'm not sure if he's.
Yeah, I should assume he's got up a bit. Okay, so we can. Okay, he's back.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. I had a call, so I needed to pick up.
Uh,
All right, the question again.
yeah, so how would you define global talent?
Yeah, so I think Joe touched on it with the borders bit. I believe if the name in itself, like, is very suggestive, so you being able to work anywhere, no matter where you are, it's not dependent on your location. And I think that's been the thing when remote became an actual thing when it comes to the job market. So it opened room for talent globally, not just like you being restricted within your country. So that's how I see it now.
Hmm.
Yeah.
All right, great. So back to the main question, for Joel, describe a specific moment when you realized your local approach wouldn't work globally, and what did you have to unlearn, and what triggered that awareness?
Yes, before I move ahead, I would give a bit of context. There have been
Sure.
cases where I've been, I mean, I'm able to share my perspective, and everybody feels like, oh, this is just tech focused, because I work in tech.
Mm,
Um, the first disclaimer that I'm going to give, or let me not say disclaimer, but more like a heads up. Based on my experience coaching people, I've seen that tech is one of the industries that requires a high bar of performance. That's the first. Like, there's high accountability, and so it forces people who work in the tech space to also automatically have a high bar of performance. That is one. And then there was a second point that I wanted to make, but hopefully I would be able to remember that. But basically, yes, remote work. So remote work too also, like, sort of widens the trap. So like, if a company is hiring remotely, it basically means that anybody on the surface of the earth can apply for that particular role. And that means that there's, like,
Oh, sorry,
the
I'm not sure
pinnacle
what
of
happened. I think my
competitiveness.
my laptop took. Oh,
Uh,
yeah,
I
sure,
think
continue.
Abigail,
Yeah,
yeah.
I've muted.
Okay,
I've
so
muted it.
yeah, so also again in my coaching experience, the pinnacle of competitiveness when it comes to job search is with regards to remote work, because work is open, there's no geographical restrictions and whatnot. And so most of the feedback, or let me say the lessons I'll be sharing, although they may look or they may sound very tech specific, it is something that, because it's like it's tried and tested at the highest pinnacle of, performance, competitiveness, and all of that, they are directly transferable. And this is coming from people who have transitioned from very traditional roles into, tech roles. So I just wanted to give that context before we move ahead. So there are learning moments. I would say when I started my career as a pharmacist, like I mentioned, I did sales, but at a point in time, I felt like I wanted more. I needed more. So in 2019, I was, trying and testing a lot of things, and happened to join, um, volunteer for an organization called the FIP and YPG. That's like the Young Pharmacists Group of the International Pharmaceutical Federation. And I think that was where I had like a massive exposure. I was working as a media coordinator, and this was a skill that I picked up back in school. I learned photography, social media marketing, and whatnot. So I could contribute that to the YPG. And although I had a technical skill sets, I had the chance to work with people. Like I was managing a team, we were globally distributed. One was sitting in Australia, another in US, and one person in Ghana. And it tested a lot of my soft skills, like things around time management, things around using tech tooling, things around, pushing the limits, just going all out for personal excellence. And for me, that was like the awakening because I realized that my career as a pharmacist and as a medical representative had boxed me into a space or into a hole. And having the chance to work within that particular area outside like, regular pharmacy sales and all of that, just opened my eyes to the possibilities out there, right? And that was my very first encounter with remote work, even before the pandemic hit. And so for me, it was really a case of having to push yourself beyond what you think is possible. And I think one of the key things that played a role in there was switching the environment because you are never really aware of things till you get exposed to information. And one way of doing that is being able to switch your environment and pushing the limits of what looks possible to you. So that was like that critical moment. And I think it's been remote work since then.
That's interesting. I think you said something about changing your environment. Are you talking about traveling or like just putting yourself in certain opportunities?
Yes. So that's the beauty of it, right? You can travel, but I don't believe at that point, I don't think I had the money to travel. Right. So it's more like get exposed any means possible. If you travel, fantastic. Because I had a chance, I was privileged to get a master's program. I got into the Shilling Scholarship and I traveled for a year, even during the pandemic year. That had its own set of experiences. But prior to that, even I told myself that, hey, even if I don't travel, I need to expose myself to things. And that means, putting myself in spaces where I get to interact, where I'm forced to interact with people, across different geographies, different cultural contexts. And so I think even without traveling, like there's this saying that says if Muhammad does not go to the mountain can come to Muhammad or so. And you can literally do that. Yeah. Moses, Muhammad, all of that. You can literally do that for yourself, right? Being able to expose yourself to those uncomfortable, areas.
Interesting. So Jeff, from what Joel is saying, you can see that there is a lot of high agency at play here. So I would ask you, Jeff, like how much does self-agency play into becoming a global talent? I'm assuming that the opportunities are there. I mean, everybody has access to internet today, but then how do you move from just being someone who is confined in, say, a local class of jobs to wanting to like double in international markets?
Yeah. So one thing I think you need to break out from is how we work over here. And that's something that, unfortunately for us, you build a habit through our education. You are taught not to question stuff. Curiosity is killed at the early stages. So it's very difficult to break out of that pattern. And to thrive outside, that's something that you need as an individual need to break out from. So for me, it's recognizing that you have this trait. As much as you might think like you are there's some part of you that's like Ghanaian oriented. And that's something that you need to break out from. We are told, once again, you are told not to question stuff. So curiosity in itself is so you realize sometimes people would ask certain questions, which is a Google away. Right now we have AI, LLMs being like thing now, and you can easily get information, but you see people still asking questions, not trying to find things because they are afraid of mistakes. They always need that guidance. And like I said, it's as a result of our education system and how we are brought up. So one thing that you need to recognize is that, and now knowing that, okay, there's something I need to work towards. I remember when I got like a remote job, one of the first things my manager said was, he feels like I'm not assertive, right? And it was because of how, like, if something is wrong, it's like you're in your corner, you don't want to say it's not samaba. So you don't question things, you don't say things that you believe is right, without being rude. That's the thing. So for me, it was just being at my corner and hoping that someone will see what I'm saying, right? And that's something I had to shift, because when he told me that, I'm like, wait, this is what they are seeing, right? For us, the culture and the way we approach work is different. So I started doing things differently. I started owning like the space wherever I belong. Like, I get in there, I ask the questions, right questions. If I don't understand something, I make sure I make it clear. And even if it's something that I don't understand, instead of asking right away, I try to see if I can find it anywhere before I even ask, so that it doesn't look like I'm not prepared. So you recognizing these traits and patterns would help you in the long run. If you notice, even over here, when it comes to, we have this cliche online where it's like, put yourself out there. You realize that it's something that we don't do, because we feel like sometimes you don't have to be vocal about what we do. The work will sell itself, but it's not the case when it comes to the global market. You need to start documenting these things. You need to be vocal about your wins, your lessons, your failures. Even your lessons can be like your biggest like advantage when it comes to these things. And sometimes you creating opportunities for yourself. So that's how I'm looking at this when it comes to, I mean, agency in itself, we know what it means, but then it's just going the extra mile. Over here, maybe you do one and all of a sudden you stand out. It doesn't work on a global market, because the standard over here doesn't translate over there. It's a whole different game over there. So you need to know that you need to go the extra mile. And that's what will help you basically navigate that market.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think what you've just said answers the second question I was going to say. So I'll probably hear from Jules, which is, when you've worked with both locally successful and globally competitive people, what's the one behavioral differences you notice consistently? Something that separates good from world class.
I think one thing that I've really observed, it ties into what Jeffrey's saying, and the word agency kind of sums it up. I've put a resource in the chat section as well. You could check out what high agency means, but it's basically that concept of like, nobody's coming to save you. Imagine if you were the only person having to do something, you're not dependent on you. But that doesn't mean that you don't get to work in a team. That's owning outcomes, right? And being able to get things done. And I'll just probably put up a scenario. I recently moved to a new location, and we have this like security man, I mean, different security men come around on their shift. And there's this particular guy that, I mean, I think twice we've run out of water, and I've had to depend on him to get the water guys in. Today did something that was shocking. He literally knocked on our door and told us that, oh, he came checking the tank and he realized that it's like 1.5 lines, to getting done. So he's projecting that probably like by tomorrow it'll be done. So if I don't mind, he's going to call the water suppliers for them to come around. And I'm like, none of the other guys have ever bothered to do this, right? And it may sound very trivial, but this same kind of behavior I've seen in different like corporate spaces, in informal spaces. It just works. And what it does is that it basically builds trust, right? There's this, like, the next time I think about having to do something, having to, execute something that I would need any of the security guards to help with, I'll definitely want to work with him, because there's this safety that I'm going to get, that, okay, this guy would come through because like he's very assertive, he gets things done. You get the point. So I'm just like driving it to the point that the whole idea of ownership, agency, if you want to see agency in action, that's like a typical example. And that's one of the things that sets people apart. People you work with on a global stage, they don't say that, well, I'm not responsible for this outcome. If they need to get things done, they ensure that they are getting in touch with whoever is responsible to get it done, right? And contrary to our culture, I mean, I'm going to use a Ghanaian term, where you are being seen as Puskaya. That is very much valued in an environment that's like high agency, things have to get done, and you make sure that these things get done. Of course, this does not apply to different contexts. So, like in contexts like the government settings, someone will feel like you're taking their job, or in high politics settings, someone will think that you're taking their job. So it's just important to also understand the cultural nuances. But for sure, as a professional, if you find yourself in highly politicized environments, you would want to think twice about, and finding yourself in spaces where you're allowed to get things done and then get your hands dirty. So I think that's what I'd love to submit around that particular.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think there is the cultural aspect to it, which is like what Jeffrey was saying with regards to, not being assertive. It's something that I have also noticed. I think in some of these spaces, when you do work, they expect you to not just submit it, but also defend it. Like you have to be able to answer questions around your work. And I think for us, because like mostly when you're growing up, because you are told not to ask questions, just accept things for what they are. It kind of like seeps into even in our careers and our professional approach to work. Anyway, so I want to jump to what is a small. For Jeff, you're working with an international organization. What is one small unglamorous decision you made early in your career that later opened these doors for you?
Yeah, so when it comes to my role there, I think one was free work. Um, it will surprise a lot of people, but when I was transitioning, because I was doing electrical engineering. So for me to transition and get a remote role, you should understand the work I had to put in just to get there. And yes, so free work in the sense that I was volunteering for roles that I felt like would help me close that gap and get me closer to me getting a job outside. Because that was one of my goals, get a job outside this country. And at that time, it seemed impossible because I spoke to people in the industry and they were like, yeah, it's not like something that you need to consider right now. You're starting out, you need to consider this and that. I'm like, okay, fine, but I know it's possible. So what I did was basically looking at where I am now. And that's one thing that I always tell people that usually I mentor is assess yourself, right? Don't be biased. Usually we try to be biased to make ourselves feel comfortable, but it's not supposed to be comfortable. You evaluating yourself is just showing the realities of your skill sets and the skill gap that you need to close. So for me, that's one thing that I did. Whereas I assessed myself and I knew the things that I needed to close, the skills that I needed to learn. So I remember, aside me doing the freelance, learning and doing freelancing, right? I applied for one job and they were like, I don't have work experience, right? They saw that I have freelance jobs, but then they've not seen any experience that should have worked in a team setting. What did I do? I applied for a volunteering role. That got me, it was an NGO, that got me working in a team setting, right? Just because I wanted to build that skill. So after that, eventually I applied and I got in. But then that's to show I understood what it took to get me there and basically did whatever I needed to do to close that gap. And it's me recognizing that and spotting opportunities because my goals were clearly stated. I knew what I needed to do. I'm not just taking any free work because I'm supposed to take any free work. It's just spotting, okay, this work will get me closer to my goal. So I will do that. And that was what kind of helped me get, closer to securing that role. I actually applied to other jobs. One was like ADP list. It didn't go through. The interview, everything went well, but then my white boys session, I didn't really go well because I was sick. But then the second one, which succeeded, was the one that I just said that I had to understand where I was at that point, and basically it helped me because one of the things they asked was, have I ever worked in in a team setting before, and I was able to provide that answer because of these volunteering roles that I did, and it really helped with that particular. Another thing that I want to state is also not forgoing whatever skill that I learned from the engineering space. The reason why I'm saying this is in the interview, they asked the question about conflict resolution and how I was able to get everyone on board. And at that point, I didn't really have enough experience on the product side because I've not worked. The work that I did, I didn't really get a lot of like conflict resolutions. But then the engineering setting, I did a lot. So I basically brought that experience in, explained what I did in there. Although I knew it wasn't like product design related, but then it basically is an experience. Although it was in a different setting, I just brought it up and it really helped in terms of me acing the interview and getting closer to securing the role. So yeah, that's the thing I looked at when it comes to that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think when you were saying what you were saying, it brought something to mind. So I had this friend who also applied for a role in an international company, and he went through the process. And I think he went through, I mean, series of interviews, and then he got to a particular interview where he was supposed to work in a team setting. But he also had this. So I'm going to talk about the cultural aspect too. But then that cultural aspect too that has to do with like every people just wanting to be the top of the class, like wanting to be the best of the best. So in that team setting, instead of him to play a team game, he rather did it all by himself, thinking that that was what it was going to get him ahead. But then they dropped him off from the interview because he wasn't a team player. So like, Joel, would you want to speak about something like this?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, there's a fine line between ownership and team collaboration, and I think it's important to always like have that clarity on things that are within your domain to handle, right? And then things that require other people to handle as well. And that's where your emotional intelligence, your cultural intelligence, and all of that comes into the picture. Because I mean, we can't exhaust those topics here, but then it's important that every role has its, has its specs. There are roles that are managerial role, not pecs. Every role has its dynamics, let me put it that way. So there are roles that are managerial roles, there are roles that are individual contributor roles. And all of this involves you interacting with people. Managerial role would be you sort of having team members report to you. You're not probably doing a lot of hands-on work, but you're guiding people to get things done. Then individual contributor role, most people sort of tend to misinterpret it as you are supposed to work alone. But it's a case of you are not managing anyone. So you're working individually, but it's one of the roles that you get to engage with people cross-functionally across different teams. So like typically my role as a senior product manager, I know that I'm not working, in a whole. I have my immediate team members that I engage with, whether the engineers or the designers and whatnot, but also the external team members that I engage with, like talking about the business teams, the internal business teams across different departments. Then there's like the external stakeholders that I work with, which is the users who are not within the company, but also they impact my work. So it's very important to always like kind of map out these stakeholders to know who you are working with directly, who you are working with indirectly, and ensure that as you work, you are roping all these people in. And that's how come people are able to play the politics game, because they're able to map out the stakeholders very well. They know that, okay, this person is very powerful in the organization. This guy is someone who speaks in the organization and people are able to listen to him or her. So I'd rather want to channel ideas, through that person. So it's a whole ball game, like when it comes to emotional intelligence, cultural intelligence, stakeholder mapping and whatnot. And thanks to AI today, you can literally learn anything that you want. You can literally profile your organization and go through the process of being able to identify people. But the core thing here is that it requires a lot of observation, right? And understanding what each team player gets to do so that you're able to call them into, the work or your workflow based on, the functions that is required of each of these team members. So I think that's the main thing with regards to team collaboration. But always know that you're not supposed to do everything totally alone. And it's very key to understand those dynamics.
Yeah. So I want to stay on you. So can you give us like a chain of a sequence of events of how you got into your role from, I mean, you went from M Pharma and then you got into Axmed. How did you get the job? How can you flow us?
Okay, it's quite an interesting journey, and I like to count my privileges in the sense that I had the chance to do sales early on in my career. And to be honest, I would advise anybody to try give sales a shot. Why it's important is that like as you go through your entire like career life cycle, there's always a part where you get to sell something, whether you're applying for a job or you're pitching a new idea, or you're even getting your direct reports to get things done. You're whipping people in line, you're, optimizing behavior. Everything is literally sales. And I would say a lot of people like shy away from sales because they think that sales is this devilish or demonic thing where you have to lie to people. Hubert, I can't hear you. You're saying something.
It's, if For me, like I feel like sales is so hard. You have to be patronizing,
Exactly, right? But then when you go through sales through a very genuine, caring lens, right? It is very pure. So one of the books that I read earlier was How to Win Friends and Influence People. That book, it changes your perspective around things. And it shouldn't be one of those things that you just read to get the ideas. No, you actually should apply those principles that you get exposed to. So I think like for me, I'm privileged because I had sales as part of my professional journey. And that sales attitude has helped me land my jobs. You may or may not believe it. And this is something that I teach in one of our career boot camps. I'll talk about that later. But basically, the first week of the boot camp, I literally show you an email thread of how I got into my M-Pharma role and how I got into my current role. And you might think I'm insane when you look at the sequence of events, right? There are points where people ignore you, they don't respond to you and whatnot, but then you keep on going. And I spent 9 months from the point of discovering the job and beginning my engagement to the point of receiving an offer. And that's like a period of 9 months. I had the same thing with Pharma, had the same thing with Axmed. And developing a sales mindset is, the key to things. One of the levers that I've experienced so far, and I'll talk about two sides of the coin. One of the levers that I've experienced so far for success when you're transitioning into a global remote job and whatnot is referrals. And referrals come through relationship building, right? So you build a relationship with someone, and I'm not talking about the relationship building, which is like just commenting on my LinkedIn post or saying hi once in a while via WhatsApp and all of that. No, the type of relationships where you get to experience my skill set, whether you're experiencing my work ethic or you're experiencing my technical skills, that's what you should strive towards. So I was really privileged to have a friend in Pharma. And I remember June 2022, when I was doing my graduation in the UK, I reached out to my friend to refer me to Pharma. There was no job on the job board. There was no product manager job. But I was like, hey, I know you're at Pharma. You're a senior business executive there. So you know what? Just give me a chance to talk to the VP of products. I would want to establish that connection. Talk about the value I could bring and whatnot, and then let's see how it goes. And that was the first time I spoke to the hiring manager. I spoke to the hiring manager 9 months before, I think 6 months before the role was posted, and 9 months before I began the role. And even though he did not give me that attention, after that call, he did not give me that attention, I would occasionally check in with him to see what's up. I was still connected with my friend who knows how well, I've been working in the pharma space. We basically were in the same, should I say, professional group as well. So his experience how I work, right? So he was the insider for me, taking a look at things, giving me, just information and stuff. And so 6 months later, a role was open. And then I had the hiring manager reaching out to me and asking whether I'm still open. You get the gist. And after joining the company, I always say that after joining the company, that was like in March 2023. What I did was I tried to go over the past. I went on my boss's calendar, and then it's a Gmail thing. So I went to my boss's calendar and I reviewed all the meetings that happened between January and March to see all the people that kind of interviewed. And I realized that the only difference, or let me say the major difference, not the only difference, the major difference between me and them was the fact that I was a pharmacist. None of them were pharmacists who had, strong background in supply chain, understanding pharma dynamics and whatnot. And for me, that was like a reassurance, right? So the first part is like leaning into referrals. And that's not the only time. All the people that have pushed into global remote jobs have most likely landed their jobs because they had a referral that got them beyond that, that recruiter pre-screening. But that recruiter pre-screening, it screens like 90% of applicants, sometimes 95% of applicants out, and then leaves the 5%. So if you have a good referral, that gets you into, the opportunity to have a conversation with a recruiter and move on to the next stage. So that was one. The second part, actually, I literally knew no one there. So it was a game of work like a salesperson, cold message people. And for me, I look at things from a degree of proximity, right? So a product job is open. I mean, luckily I saw the product job and that's how the company came up on my radar. But then it was a case of I need to talk to people, right? It's either I'm talking to people who will most likely be my immediate colleagues, or I'm talking to decision makers, so like the C-suite, or I'm talking to like people close to the decision makers to think about the executive assistants and all of that. And for early stage startups, it's pretty much easy to have access to these people because the founders, executive teams, they are mostly hands-on. As against like 1,000, employee startup where you would have to, go through a lot of hoops to reach whoever has to make the decision. So for me, it was really being able to identify like I think it was 25-person organization at that point in time, and I had to identify all the people in the code message center. I code message the CEO, the COO, the CTO, the executive assistant to the COO. Like I was just on a mission. And this span across a 9-month period. But then the interesting part was that the last code message, all the code message was more around, okay, you have this job open. I'd like to, have a discussion about this, all of that is my value and whatnot. But then in May, I code message the CTO and I used a different approach. I was like, let me A/B test this. And I was like, hey, I mean, you just got into your role as CTO. You know what? LMIs is like low to middle income countries. I have this years of experience and all of that. If you need any help in terms of understanding the market, understanding the users and all of that, I'm happy to provide you a lot of context. So it was more like seeing myself as, someone who's partnering you, right? On a very, very chill level. And he replies and goes like, oh, actually we are hiring. So if you don't mind, let's hop on a call. And that's what trickled into a lot of conversations. Now, this is the crazy part. I got rejected for the role. And the reason was this.
Wow.
Yes, the reason was this. My boss was upfront. He was like, hey, we have a guy in the pipeline. And I knew because I was a recruiter, I understood that it's always a pipeline thing. There's always going to be someone ahead of the interview process and whatnot. And if the company gets whoever they are proud of, they'll just go with that person as a choice. So he was upfront and told me that, hey, I mean, we have someone, way ahead in the process. If you don't mind, we can have this conversation now, or we can have it later. I was like, no, we're having this conversation now.
No.
I don't care about all come later, but let's have that conversation now. So we had the conversation, and then it so happened that the person had accepted the offer. So then I had to be rejected. But when I looked at the trajectory of the company, early stage, seed, not even Series A, there was a lot of growth. They are just like 25 people. So I know that definitely it is a company that's going to scale, and I need to add them to like my list of people that I keep tabs on. So I was like, oh, cool. Like, I mean, no hard feelings. We can definitely connect. And the crazy part is that a month later or two later, the guy that was giving the offer decided to leave based on his own like preferences. Yeah, and that's how I was called back in, and let's get into it. There's the offer. Are you interested? At that point, I didn't have to, hold another conversation because the conversation was already had. You get the point. So that's also like a dynamics with regards to not knowing anyone inside and trying to put forth your way in there. At the end of the day, it is really about making sure that you're visible to decision makers and leveraging any means possible, whether you're using referrals or you're using cold messages. And for me, those are like the series of events that got me to, move into pharma. And I leverage the same playbook into Axnet. So basically, if I want to start a new job, I start like 9 months earlier. That's the point.
That's insane. It reminds me of an experience I had. I think somewhere last year when I went for the Africa Tech Festival, I saw a guy. I was speaking with him, and then he told me, like, when you travel and then you see a Ghanaian, somehow you can just know that this person is a Ghanaian. So this guy is standing there. I'm looking at the guy, I'm looking at his facial features, and all. I'm like, nah, this guy is Ghanaian. So I approached him and I'm like, hi, boss, are you Ghanaian? He's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. So, like, where do you work? I tried to engage him. Figured that he said he was working in the cybersecurity space in Accra here, but he traveled all the way to the event in his own capacity. That's the words he used. And basically what he was there to do was to make international friends. So the idea was that he would go to maybe a booth of like an international firm, and then he would just ask them questions. But he's not asking them questions out of a place of curiosity. He's asking them so that he can contribute to whatever they have, and then just like put a mental note in their head so that like later on he can reach back and be like, oh, I'm the guy who met you at the Africa Tech Festival somewhere in Cape Town, and then eventually transition into a role like that. So yeah, when you were saying that was ringing through my head. So you talked about yeah, he's a hunter. You talked about building connections. You talked about cold emailing people and all of that. I want to ask Jeff, like, did that play a role in any of your endeavors when approaching, getting a job with like a global company?
Yeah, for me, I didn't really do any code in emailing or code DMs. It was just application and I got in. And I think the time I applied, there were a lot of remote roles. That was the thing. That time COVID stopped, it was fresh. So a lot of remote roles were opened. And for me, one thing that I said was, I just need an entry point. If I'm in there, I'm not coming back. So when it comes to capitalizing on that opportunity, I did a lot, like working, interacting with people. Like I know there's no way I'm going to chat with this person, not for this job. So I make sure I counter on those opportunities. And like one of the managers that's left like our company, I remember he was like, there's this opportunity at its end, and if anytime I'm ready, I should let him know. He would refer me basically for that role. And that's because when I got in, I wasn't like, oh, because I'm in, I'm just settling for that. No, that was my chance to build connections because I didn't have that referral network, right? So that was my chance of creating some referral network for myself. So that's how I got in terms of making sure that I stay relevant. That's where my contribution, reaching out to people, collaborating, sharing thoughts, putting out my own stuff too as well. Because you might think sometimes these things that we do outside work, it's not relevant, but then they do see what you put out there. And I've gotten these like opportunities because of sometimes me putting myself out there, me talking about stuff, me sharing takes, me doing my video content. Recently, there was an opportunity in the company where they were trying to do something around marketing, right? And because they've seen me create videos, they've seen me talk about stuff, they've seen me do stuff outside my normal product design role, they knew I can contribute to that. So basically, my managers were the one that were vouching for me in those conversations. Now, eventually, they had to like move me a bit up to contribute in those marketing conversations. So now I was part of the marketing team, having discussions, brainstorming, although I was in the product development team, right? Another thing that I also did in terms of also make like it's more of announcing your presence, letting people know your presence, right? So one thing that I did was when I joined, yes, although yeah, I've joined as a designer, obviously. I also made my intentions known in terms of being part of the conversations on top. So that's like the business conversations, because I believe that's where the impact will be felt most. So that's what I did. I reached out to my PM. I was like, yeah, I've seen them do this, but I want to be part of those conversations. I want to listen. So I was doing that for like, I think I reached out for a couple of times. And one time I was there, it was like, yo, they are having this meetup. Do I want to be part? I entered. Luckily, there was an issue that we were having with one feature that we wanted to launch. And I was able to basically come up with an idea that worked, and they all laughed. And I think that was the turning point for me in terms of bringing me into those conversations. They were like, you know what, we are making you part of this conversation. And I was part of the stakeholder. Although I started as a designer, but then I was joining these conversations that on a normal day you not see a designer being part. But it was just me being curious, me exerting what I can do, letting them know that yes, I have more to offer, not just settling for what they knew me for. Right. And that's for me my leverage when it comes to making sure there's still an opportunity for me, because I didn't do like a code emailing like Joe's route. Mine was just application. But right now, the market is a bit different because now the remote jobs are less now. So that means you have to put in more effort to basically get in there. Just an application wouldn't do. That's the thing. Like right now, that's the truth when it comes to the remote jobs. If not, you are looking at bypassing 8 years, like make it, because probably a AI bot is basically reviewing your resume. So that's where your
Crazy.
keywords and how you basically tailor your resume. If you're able to go through that, fine. But then you need to basically know the game and know how to play the game. It doesn't matter if you have 10 years of experience. If you don't play the game, you'll not get inside. And that's the reality of like the remote job right now.
Yeah, we'll come to the remote bit. Also, we'll come to exposure and then visibility. But someone has a question, and um, I think they asked that. Oh, it's Joe. You were the one who sent it. The person said that a
No, that was
typical
Ricardo.
Ghanaian child. Yeah, it says a typical Ghanaian child is quiet and timid, but I'm chasing global skill or impact. And then he said, how can I deeply prepare to bridge that gap, ensuring my limited verbal interventions land with enough executive weight to secure international impact and opportunities? Would you want to speak to that?
That's me.
Yeah,
Give
Joe.
it.
Yeah.
Right. So I just dropped something in the chat. So that's the thing. Ensuring my limited verbal interventions. That's I think that part's that's like the main meat of things that have to be addressed, right? You can't make it. There's a difference between being an introvert and being timid. Vast difference. An introvert is someone like, let me give you a typical example. So people think that an introvert is someone who should not build relationships, right? But possibly, like, think about it, like a way that an introvert will go about things as against an extrovert is that while an introvert might not be posting on LinkedIn, they may be reaching out to people via DMs, sending them connection invites, securing one-on-one conversations. They are playing by their strengths. An extrovert will be going all out, posting the videos, making posts and all of that. And also that kind of attracts the attention that you need. All of these are processes that can work, right? Depending on your own personality. And so it's very important to like contextualize things to your own personality, to your own realities and whatnot. But one thing that you should not compromise on. So for example, like wanting to achieve something with your limited verbal interventions, I would say you have to start rewiring it and thinking about it as this is where I am today. This is where I'm supposed to go. Now, my direction requires that I have to do these uncomfortable things. How do I make sure that I'm driving myself through all these uncomfortable scenarios to get there? Because like growth never happens in comfort. That's the bottom line. Growth never happens in comfort. So I typically love to rewire things. Whenever I feel like I'm in a uncomfortable situation at work, I rewire it as, okay, this is like a growth opportunity. So what can I do about it? What's the kind of story that I want to talk about in the next 1 year, in the next 2 years, if I'm ever asked about this particular situation? And then I go through that particular pain. Now, I would guarantee you, none of the advice that we give you here is enough to give you behavioral change. But then the purpose of like these sessions is just to expose you to scratch the surface and then to sort of help you move along on your own independently. Like there's this initiative that I started called the SWAT Collective. I'm like, people should be able to independently navigate around things. And the challenge that I've seen with a lot of this is that when people find out information, the barrier between finding out the information and actually applying the information, right? And not knowing what the outcome could be you not achieving your outcome, which people call as failure, or you achieving the outcome. Like it could go both ways. But then that barrier is always huge, right? People would gather all the information, but putting it to action is one of the difficult aspects. So I created a couple of readings and I put that in the chat. It's one of the things that helps you to rewire your thinking to understand that, see, I need to build agency. And that means that if I have to be vocal, I have to be vocal. If I had to shoot a video, although I'm uncomfortable, I'll find time and shoot it. I'm not looking at being perfect. I'm looking at being like, 1% better every day. And that's the kind of mindset that you need, to be honest, because like I mentioned, none of the advice that we give you here will ever guarantee and be real change. And that's why I'm also confident that out of the 100 plus people that are here, only 10% will actually put to use the things that we are talking about. The remaining 90% will still be looking for a lot of advice. Oh, I need more advice. I need mentorship and all of that. But what you really need is not advice. You really need to put yourself into the game. So when you get enough information, try practicing. You've heard about code messaging today. Try practicing code messaging. Try reading about it, right, in an unguided manner. And that way of navigating uncertainties, trying to make sense out of things and whatnot, is one of the things that can guarantee you success. And it does not just apply to like you getting a job, but then even in a job, if you need to understand something, you wouldn't be waiting for someone to explain stuff for you because you build that agency that gets you to, get information. So, as Emmanuel, I hope that you're able to apply these, principles. These are things that I think has worked for people, and that will be super helpful to you. And I think the graph also put something in the chat. I don't know if the graph you have something to add.
Yes, so for me, I think you mentioned it like in your latter part of your submission, where you need to acknowledge where you are and the gap that you need to close. I think this is bringing me back to what I said earlier, that evaluating yourself. If you've done that part, it's basically now, okay, what do I need to close it? If it's trying something new, do it. Because I mean, there's always there for me. I don't see the way people approach life generally is like, I feel. And I think once again, it's because of how we're brought up. Like classroom, education, failing is something that's like an abomination, but actually it's not. You get to learn a lot from it. So you putting yourself out there, no matter, there's also another thing where it gets people's head where they feel like they've reached, right? So they don't want to do certain things. But the question is, if you truly are there, then you shouldn't be complaining about where you are now. Like you should basically get in that easy. So if you are not getting in that easily, then it means there's something that you don't know and there's something that you need to learn. And that will basically help you, because for me, that ego and trying to play on that card that, yeah, I'm good. If you are good, you need to get into those conversations. So at that point, if you are not getting in those conversations, it's a matter of, okay, what do I need to do, or what am I not doing currently that I need to work on? Then you start working on that. If it's cold DMs, cold emails, do that. Finding information, do that. Go the extra mile. Sometimes the first thing that comes in mind, especially if you are trying to break out like of this pattern, the first thing that comes in your mind as a solution is usually not it. It's usually because of how you are wired. So if your first instinct is to ask someone, oh, how do I go about it? Pause. See if you can find the information. Right. That's how you change how you process things. That's how you change. Because sometimes you might think you are causing more harm than good by asking certain people certain questions. If you are reaching out to someone that's like of that high agency and you send a certain question, you are basically shooting yourself in the foot because it clearly shows that you are not up for it. And these are some of the things that you need to consciously learn and make sure you are striving towards it. Do something that always do something that you've not done before. Like get out of that comfort zone. If you are too comfortable, then you are not doing something right.
Yeah, this is very interesting. It feels like, from what I'm getting from everything you guys are saying, it feels like most of our limitations are more of like it's more of like a behavioral challenge than the lack of opportunities. That is, there are opportunities there, but then I think behavior is what um the kind of behavior that we grew up with sort of becomes an impediment to our success in some way. I have, ever since I had an experience to travel, I'm getting into the exposure bit. Had the experience to travel. I've always been advocating to my friends that you guys need to travel, not necessarily like relocating, but just go and go out there and then mingle with people. I have always been an sort of like an introvert growing up, which is I don't always put myself out there. I don't put myself in places where I would get the opportunities that I need. I would sit back, I would observe, I would think that, oh, I could do this thing better, but then I would not put myself to that place or get myself to that place where I'll do this thing. And when I happened to get the opportunity to work with this international corporation where we would have to go for like an event, for instance, Design Week Cape Town, majority of the people that we're seeing are people who are coming from like very affluent backgrounds. They are people who have like high level of education, and sometimes when you are in the midst of such situations and having conversations and all that, you just feel like it feels like you're a fish out of water. Like you just want to like get out of the place because the imposter syndrome becomes very intense, right? Considering that both of you have traveled, Joel, for instance, you're well traveled. I want to ask, like, how has travel shaped your mind, especially with your approach to work?
Well traveled. Anyway, so first of all, like one of the things that I did say was if you can't go to the destination, bring the destination to you. And one of the easy ways to do that is to join communities. And not joining communities like a member of the wall, right? Like, I mean, like a flower on the wall, like you're quiet, you're just there observing. No, you are joining the communities to really interact with people, to take on leadership opportunities, to identify problems, to solve them. Abigail Dugbe is giving a hat because she's like, community madam, right? And if you are below, say, 27 years, one of the spaces that you can find yourself in is Global Shapers, right? So when I joined Global Shapers, it just transformed a lot of things for me because I could connect with like 500 people across the globe, right? I had a chance to travel to Switzerland for the first time, not on my budgets, because of Global Shapers and because of the amazing community work that we get to do outside work. So those are some of the things that you can do. Again, like I said, I like to recognize my privilege. And as a salesperson, I was always thought about being able to use the resources you have to get what you want. I knew for a fact that there's no way my dad told me that he was not going to take care of any masters. Like your end is your degree, which is a privilege in its own, right? But then for me, I was like, okay, if I want to get a master's, I'm going to take care of it myself. And that meant getting a scholarship. So if I'm going to get a scholarship, then I need to sell a story. Again, it comes down to selling, right? I need to sell a story that is real, a story that will demonstrate my potential and the stuff that I've done. And I did exactly that. And that got me into the Shimlin Scholarship. Although I had to travel during the pandemic, a part of it also gave me, like a part of the period, gave me the chance to engage with other people. Like Shimlin is a global scholarship. On a yearly basis, the UK government would sponsor about 3,000 plus students to study in the UK for a UK masters, and they're all part of the Shimlin community. The Shimlin community has a lot of, alum. Bernard Avle is like an alumni of the Shimlin community. There are presidents outside Ghana. Through the Shimlin community, I got exposed to people from, the Caribbean, the Philippines, and some parts of Asia. Like, it was just amazing, right? And that was like one of the opportunities for me to blend into that multicultural environment and appreciate perspectives from people, right? Right from the cultural perspectives to how people think, how people appreciate things, and also just broadening your network. And it's very interesting how I'm able to move into like any country, and then all I need to do is like look for a global shaper community or look for a Shivling community there, and I'm able to connect to people locally when I travel. So all of these things kind of exposes you, but like I mentioned, if you've not gotten the chance to even get a Shivling scholarship, a scholarship that moves you from your location, you start asking yourself, how do I get myself into spaces where I can still encounter people? Because that's the bottom line, right? Encounter people from different cultures. And it comes down to the community. So for those in the tech space, I know there's a lot of foundation, like open source communities, Python and all that. And you get to like encounter different people, right? You get to encounter different people. And we've seen people like Afi Mahmoud join as a member and rise all the way to become a VP, right? We've seen people like Abigail and the likes lead certain chapters in these foundations, and it's never beyond us. So it really comes down to being able to find these communities, which is literally a Google search or a Twitter tweets away, right? Just asking. And not just joining these communities, but also sort of getting involved in those communities so that people experience you. And then intentionally building relationships with people. If it's like one coffee chat a week that you're going to have, that's like 52 coffee chats you're getting in a year. And that means 52 different people. And it doesn't end at just that first chat. Going ahead to really understand their needs, contributing to their needs, or even connecting people to them. That, hey, I know this guy that I think you should collaborate with, just connect with them and then see where the collaboration would lead to. And most likely when that collaboration actually becomes like fruitful, they would always remember that you are the one who was at the center of that introduction. And that strengthens the value of the perception that they have. So in a nutshell, that's like really like how to bring the world to you if you don't have the budgets to travel. And I don't know if there's like any other perspective that I've left out, but happy to add that as well.
Yeah. Jeff, do you have any experience you want to share?
Oh, not really, not really. I mean, I've not traveled, but then the only travel I think
Yeah, why
I've
are you
done
capping?
just a few ones, but then it's not for work, it's just chilling.
Mm.
But yeah, for just to an add-on is basically I think what's Joe said about bringing, if you can't go there, bringing it over here. It's for me, it's acknowledging that instead of complaining that this is my situation and I'm basically like I don't have any other chance than to suffer or whatever notion that you have around our situation. It's just you looking at the opportunities that we have and basically making sure you are countering on those opportunities. And funny enough, the moment you start like switching from complaining about our system and you start looking at making things work for you despite the system, you start seeing opportunities. And this thing, I've experienced this firsthand when I was in the engineering space, the mining space. I remember when I joined, there were a lot of people complaining about the system, blah, blah, blah. this not working, this not working. In my head, I'm like, I'm already here. What can I do to make the best out of this situation? Like, and all of a sudden, I started seeing things that they were not seeing. I contributed to projects. I remember building, although it didn't come to fruition, but I remember building, designing like a workshop management system for the company, right? And I was a national service personnel, right? I like no one told me to do it. I just did it. I didn't ask permission, like Joe said. Don't ask permission. I just did it. Reached out to the people that I need to reach out to. Eventually, I started having conversation with the supervisors and all that, but I left the company. But if I was there, I'm sure I'll probably have implemented it. But then just make exposing myself to these things where I'm not stuck on complaining. People are complaining. Yes, people will always complain about our situation or their situation. If you follow that trend, you will always see bad stuff. That's the thing. And psychology, we know psychology proves this. Confirmation bias. Whatever you believe, you will start seeing things and it will just be making your case worse. So instead of saying that, yeah, we can't get remote jobs, it's very difficult, people are getting it. So what are they doing differently? Start looking at that, reach out to people that are doing well, make sure you are not just sending some dry message. I was trying to look for one message I sent a guy, he was at HelloFresh, but that message got me a resume review. And although I didn't get in, I was close to getting a Shopify role. Now, it was me transitioning. I didn't have tons of work in my portfolio. I was on a call with, I was on a call with, it was a webinar, Ivy Bali. I don't know, I think that's the name. Yes. And the guy was on the call. So he was talking about remote opportunities. And I just reached out, sent what I did with my portfolio. It was on Twitter. And I'm trying to see if yes, this is what he said. He was like, "Hi, Jeffrey, thanks for reaching out and doing a great job by providing a lot of details ahead of time." Now, that's what most people forget. When it comes to these people, they are really busy. So as much as possible, you need to be clear on the first message. Don't say hello and leave it there. Or say hi, like it wouldn't work. So this is what I sent. I'm trying to read what I sent so that you get clarity on why this matters. I'm like, "Hello, Selassie. My name is Jeffrey Dugav-Tenzin. I'm currently an electrical engineer by profession and a product designer by freelance. I've been freelancing for close to 3 years now, but my current work schedule, mostly working 12 hours every day, makes it difficult for me to pursue my designing career. I had this fear of transitioning because my engineering job is my only stable income. I decided to put myself out there by applying for jobs, but to no avail. I'm still working on building a strong portfolio to aid in my transition. I heard you speak on Ivy Spaces about helping people land roles in the tech space, and I was wondering if you could help me transition into the tech space. I'm currently looking for full-time remote opportunities for me to go as a product designer and be able to provide more value to the brands and businesses I work with. Below is my LinkedIn profile and portfolio. I'm looking forward to hearing from you." And yeah, that was my message. So one, I provided clarity on what I needed from him, what my situation was, why I even saw him in the first place, because that also matters. And through that, we were able to schedule a call. He helped me with my resume. And I think that also helped me also land in my role too as well. But this was me going outside the usual norm, because back then it wasn't a thing. But then that's to show when it comes to these things, there is no formula actually. But then it's just you deciding that this will not be my situation. It's not cringe. For me, that cringe, it's not cringe. Just do what you need to do to get whatever opportunity you want to get. Whether, because that's the only thing that's stopping you right now from getting to where you are. Believing or thinking about like what's wrong with the system rather than focusing on it. Look at what you can do differently and go for it.
Yeah, there is a saying that adopt every legitimate means to win. Failure is hard to explain. Anyway, so we have a couple of minutes to go. A lot has been said on the call. At this point, I'm taking in questions. If you have any questions, please can you just you can share that here, and then okay, someone was asking a question about infrastructure behind remote work too. I don't understand the question that well. Joe, do you have the
Yeah, I think
context?
I got some clarity. So more like the things that you need to have in place to thrive, right? So anything cutting from uh, payment gateways, how do you get your money into your bank accounts, to
Oh, okay.
internet, backup options,
Mhm.
electricity, all of that. But I was saying that is quite broad, so it'd be great to sort of narrow down on
Mm,
the specifics. Yeah, it'd be great to sort of narrow down on the specifics. So
yeah.
while we are waiting on Elnam, I also like sort of answered a question from Blueprint Africa about communities, right? Joining communities. And if you're on the call and you're part of any community, please drop the name of the community in the chats, like right now. If you're part of any community at all where there are people that you get to engage with, whether it's a professional community, leisure community, whatever it is, kindly drop the name of the community in the chat. At least you can curate a list of communities for Blueprint Africa to look into.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can also join the brief community. I just put the link in there. Um, there are about like 500 young professionals. You can
yeah,
join in and network.
exactly.
Anyway, all right. So,
Yeah.
please, I'm still waiting
There
for your
was
questions.
there was
Yeah,
another question though from Nancy. Um, so it says probably I'll take that one. There's also another one from Rosemary. So Jeff,
yeah.
you'll be able to take the second one then. Um, so is asking how I blended pharmacy with product
Product
design
design,
in terms of I'm actually doing product management,
product
not design.
management.
Yeah. So in terms of time management, I would say I was again counting my privileges. It was an intentional choice. I was like, I was not going to do a transition while I was working because it's going to be super stressful. So I was not even clear on the direction, right? All I wanted to do was to do something that requires data, right? Like incorporating data in business decisions. And so that was one of the things I was looking out for, even with my Shilling scholarship. So I applied for a business analytics uh, master's at University of Southampton, and then I got in. One of the strategies for me was that I should get funding so that like it matches up with whatever salary that I was making. So it's still like I'm getting the same amount of money that or more that I'm getting while working. But this time round, it's like more money and then also learning, getting the space to learn. So within that period, I went into building. It was tough because the 1 year UK masters and finishing with a distinction by God's grace, it's not an easy feat. But then I ensured that I was treating my business, the career coaching business at that point in time, seriously. So building a team, building processes and all of that. And that is what's actually got me to start thinking about, okay, beyond just using data and all of that, what are um, uh, the career pathways for me? And then I chanced on products management. When I chanced on products management was well, it did not end there. I actually again leveraged my code messaging. I code messaged this guy called Charles Wattenberg. He was working at Microsoft by then. Top product leader, worked at Microsoft, worked at Netflix, all the big places that you could think of. So I reached out to him on LinkedIn. He did not respond. I reached out to him on Twitter and then he responded. And then we took the conversation back to LinkedIn. But before I reached out to him, I saw an IG video. It was an interview with him, a 1 hour video. I took the pain to listen to that 1 hour video. And so by the time I was reaching out to him, I wasn't asking him things that were, I could easily Google about him and whatnot. I literally was going to trap his attention and I got his attention. And although I met him in 2021, I nurtured a relationship. 2023, when I was trying to get into Pharma, he was the one that reviewed my case study. And I realized that the advice that I got from other product managers and then the advice that I got from him there was a stark difference because it had a lot of strategic insight. The way the question was framed was just a one-liner thing. It was like, you're joining them farm as a senior product manager. How will you structure product management activities? Cloud was like, hey, start from the vision of the organization, read their impact report, work it back, build a
Hmm.
strategy, build a short-term strategy, build a long-term strategy. Think about how you're going to transform the logistics infrastructure for a farmer. And the difference with talking with other like regular product managers was more around, oh, talk about how you set up the workflow, setting up Jira and all of that. So I spotted the clear difference at that particular point in time. And it's one of the things that got me into that particular role. So in terms of time management, I would say, see, you would definitely go through a period where you have to invest a lot of time. I remember when I was doing a master's, I was probably doing like 12-hour days. I mean, it was not new to farmers because pharmacists would do like 8-hour shifts somewhere and do like an additional 5 or 6 hour shifts somewhere else. Right. So for me, it wasn't new to me. But then the the formula that I use is that if you want to get there faster, then you have to sort of crunch the timeline. And that means you have to put in extra effort. If you want to pace yourself, then you know that's the trade-off is the time that is going to take you to transition. And I
Hmm.
chose the difficult part because I was like, I want to transition faster and then enjoy the fruits of my labor. And so, yeah, that's I would say, Nancy, that's the way I blended things. I took time off work and ensured that my lifestyle was still funded by a scholarship. And then whilst learning, I also spent extra time building my career coaching business and later managing. And that helped me smoothing my transition.
Nice. Um, so which websites would you recommend for genuine remote roles, Jeff?
Yeah, so I mean, there are lots. I think indeed we work remotely. There are lots. But even with this question, I don't know, Max, but then with this question, your best bet would be AI. You can Gemini will get you a
So
lot.
many of them. Yeah.
Yes.
I
And
also want to. Okay, you finish up. Finish up.
yeah, yeah. So this comes back to what we're discussing about. Sometimes if your instinct is to ask a certain question, like just think about it, see if you can get that information anywhere before you even ask. But then it was just to let you know that there's this habit. You might it's there. You just need to acknowledge it and start working towards it. So anytime you want to ask a question, think about it. Be like, okay, can I get this answer anywhere before you ask? But yeah,
Yeah,
there are lots
pinch yourself.
there.
Like, Jeffrey, like, if you were just to add to that, like, it is very important because there's no way you can build your curiosity without that. And anybody that I mentor, initially they find that thing to be annoying, but over time they get to build this. Because like a question pops up, they go search and they're like, okay, I don't need to talk to Joe.
Mhm.
That's the same thing that you want to use, right? You don't need to talk to people always. It's one of the superpowers that you can hone. Like, and it's very funny how sometimes, like now AI summaries, they're like you can literally ask the question and then the AI just gives you the answer directly in your face. And you're like, whoa, I just have my answer. Right. So
Yeah.
like just resist that edge, always pace yourself. And when you are trying to get in touch with people, try and understand things from their own experience and perspective. Because I've never spoken about my experience online, there's no way you would know about that. So you use that information that you've gathered to now trigger a conversation around their own experiences. And the conversation becomes more intimate that way.
Yeah. Yeah, this is true because there are some questions that I'm reading here. I think it still applies. For me, how I got my roles, I think I got my roles one from LinkedIn and then the other from Instagram. I'll just say that you have to put yourself out there, like visibility, which was like the last thing I wanted us to talk about. How maybe creating content plays a role in getting a job. I think Jeff said something a bit about, I mean, he moving up in his organization because he's doing like these reels and content creation thing. And like I wanted to even ask, should all of us become content creators now? Because I guess at this point, if you don't put yourself out there, you're not getting these jobs. Like, should we all start putting like camera and talking about what we do? And anybody wants to say, Jeff, you're laughing, but like
Yeah,
this
I
is
mean,
serious, man.
can't leave my job. But yeah, last time I was saying is like you don't need to be a content creator to like stand out. Social
Bro,
currency.
but the thing is that every person who is creating content, like they've got it right. Like they've got some opportunity that has changed their life. I'll give you an example. So for me, working the company that I work with now, I think on one of the trips I asked like, how did they even, because I didn't apply for it, how did they find me? They were like, oh, they were going through their Instagram followers because they were coming to Ghana, and then they realized that okay, I followed them. Then they went on my page and they saw the kind of content that I do, and they're like, okay, yeah, let's work with this guy. Um, there are a lot of people who think that they don't have to put content out there. Like, would you make an argument like you have to like create something, you have to put yourself out there?
Yes. So when it comes to social currency, it's about visibility and how you can build that visibility. So I mean, right now the game is the content, but then you can be a writer and still get the visibility. It's just that when it comes to the social media platforms or the popular ones that we know, currently video is the way. So it might seem like, oh, if I want to get there, that's the only way to get there. But then look at what the industry are in and try and see, okay, what are other people doing differently aside creating content that's getting them into those conversations, and try and see if you can do that. Because once again, I don't know what happened to article writing, but then that can get you opportunities. Like people can see that too as well. So it's not just about videos. It's like as long as you are putting something out there, whatever the medium it is, like just putting yourself out there, you definitely get someone to see. But then for me, I always recommend looking at where you are and see what people are doing. That getting them there. I think that's the only way you can bridge it.
Mm.
If it's not your thing, don't bother. But then once again, get out of your comfort zone. And you are still there. So what can you do differently this year? Ask yourself this question. If you were doing something last year and it didn't work, this year you need to approach it differently. So if it's through reaching out to people, joining communities like Joel said, putting content out there, whatever it is that would get you into these conversations, going for events, because that's also crucial. Like it could be a webinar like this, it could also be a physical event, but then making sure you are part of those conversations or you are in those conversations, that's very crucial. So it's not every event that you need to attend, especially if your people are not there. But then also think of it, because sometimes someone could be connected to someone. So you don't know what will lead to that. But sometimes going for these events, letting people know what you are doing, your domain and everything, it helps. Sometimes I see people, when you go for events, they are not interested to have a conversation because they are not doing anything.
Anything, yeah.
Yes.
No projects.
And at that point, you don't expect me to take it seriously. I mean, for me, I'm someone that's constantly trying something. So if you are not doing anything, like we can't really have a nice conversation. So, and once again, if you are planning on competing on a global level, you can't just do things like anyhow and expect people to know you, right?
Mm.
Yes, you need to go the extra mile. And if your extra mile is through content or whatever it is, do that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Reagan is asking, are you guys picking mentees? You know, Joel's what do you call it? Joel's gateway for you becoming his mentee is insane. Like when he releases the document and then you go through it, like if you are not really serious, you are not getting anywhere. It's crazy. Reagan is saying, are you guys picking mentees? Anyway, let me
Well,
just move to it.
I actually replied to his message. Yes. So we are. I mean, I am picking mentees, and I'm picking very self-sufficient mentees. So the interesting thing that I've seen so far, we have about. I started, I think, a couple of months back, 2 months back or something. So far, we have 6 people in there. I see Dixon on the call, so shout out to Dixon. And it's crazy. These guys are like ranging from students in second, third year to professionals. Like, and they are super self-sufficient, and they're just like, self-sharing their journeys and all that. It's exactly how I pictured it. Now the thing is, when you get into that group without going through the screening, it's going to be difficult for you. Okay, I see Sandra as well. I see Kweku as well. It's going to be very difficult for you because these are people who are thriving on curiosity, finding information, having high agency, getting things done. And so there's like an entire set of readings and a final task that you have to go through. And you'd have to find my email as well online to reach out. When you're able to complete that, then I'm very confident that you've gone past the first stage. And of course, like when you join the group and you are not active within a month, you get like
Yeah,
taken off.
out.
So yeah, that's like those are the rules. And I believe like this is what we need to do. Like, to be honest, all jokes aside, this is what we need to do for the next generation of African talent. If you want to override, do that hard reset of the timidity and all. We're all once timid, like we wouldn't talk, we would keep quiet and all of that. But situations forced us to move out of it. And now we have to create that proactive environment for people to go through that. And Jeffrey also has a community, the bullshit, and he will talk about it. You go through similar things.
It's insane. Right now, everybody is gatekeeping.
So
I
I'm
mean,
free gate to you just have
I
to pay
know,
with your
right?
time, to be honest. Like
Yeah,
just pay with your time.
yeah. So Jesse is also like a global talent. Jesse works with an international organization. He said that right now, the good tactic is to put yourself everywhere: article writing, subreddits, LinkedIn, Facebook, in-person events, online communities, etc. Yeah, so this speaks to something I read on Twitter. I think there was a time, and I think anyone who, if you haven't seen this on your Twitter, you should probably search for it, which was someone posed the question and they asked that what is an unhinged thing you did to get ahead? And when you go through like the quotes, you see a lot of high agency at play there. One person said something that they attended every event of Tech Cabal. And then when they went for the event, they wrote about it. Like they did like an article, wrote about the event, what they learned, everything, and then they published it. And with time, the company just reached out to the guy. It was like, you come work with us, and that's how you got the role. So I guess you just have to be creative around, getting these jobs. So it's 8:30 now, and we are closing up. My last question to our panel speakers is: if this audience remembers one thing from the entire conversation, what should it be?
I'll probably go first. So I summarize this as a CIA strategy. Again, you find everything in the document that I posted in the chat. But it's basically getting curious, not stopping at the curiosity, learning how to find information, not stopping there, and actually acting on the information. So having high agency. So I call it the CIA strategy. And to be honest, if you have this loop of you're curious about something, find information, act on it, learn from it, get more curious, and you keep going, you are able to, accelerate even before people that have been in the industry for quite some time. And that's the only gem that I can leave you with. If there's anything that you're going to do after the score, at least you've been curious enough to join the score. You've gathered a lot of information. Now it's time to act. And I'm looking forward to hearing, a lot of your feedback from, acting with any of these principles. I'm available on Twitter, Janaman, on LinkedIn as Joalanaman as well. And hopefully let's connect. Over to you, Jeff.
Yeah. So for me, it would be getting out of your comfort zone. I think there was this quote that the only thing the work that you're avoiding is the good that you are looking for, right? And when it comes to these things, sometimes I believe we know what we need to do. It's just that you just know the work that you need to put in to get there, and it's a bit overwhelming or whatever it is. You just don't want to do it. So this year, if you want to see things manifest differently, just go back to that plan that you have. If you don't have one, basically set one for yourself, evaluate yourself where you are now, and see the gaps that you need to close to get to whatever goal that you've set for yourself this year, and go hard on the execution. Your idea to execution time needs to be as small as possible. Don't just sit on the idea, whatever it is. It's not cringe, I bet you. It's just your body's natural way of trying to prevent you from doing that thing. Because once again, you are used to that comfort. So try and step out of that comfort zone and do that work. So that's what I have to say.
All right. Great. It's been a wonderful session. Thanks to everybody for joining in, and special thanks to our panel speakers, Joel and Jeff. I interacted with Joel and Jeff before I even met them in person, thanks to the internet. And Joel, for one, has been very inspiring to me. And I'm glad that I was able to get him on the call. Jeff, I've been observing from far since Design Junkies days, and we eventually met. Probably we've met like twice, and it's been good. So thank you guys for making time to join in on the call. Please, if you would want, you can put like your LinkedIn link. Regan says he wants to meet both of you one day.
No, to be fair,
Maybe
I've
you like,
actually not met Regan. I've not met Regan.
really?
So, Regan,
You
I'm
haven't
looking
had you on the
forward to meeting
podcast?
you in flesh and blood.
He
This
hasn't
year,
had you on the
have a
podcast.
day. See, I did wait to my girl. In
That's
fact, me, I'm
insane.
proud of. I'm proud of.
Okay. I get
If I have some call, I'm proud. I don't want to talk.
All right, please you can put your LinkedIn in the chat. We can connect with ourselves. You can join the brief WhatsApp community. I didn't tell you about brief because probably maybe you went on the website to add the link to your. But then anyway, we will be hosting this every month, so hopefully we have our panel speakers back here. Thank you guys for joining.
To
Yeah,
say,
sure.
yeah, so I think Joe mentioned it, which is the boat shift community. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'll just speak briefly on it. So once again, it was just around the narrative around African talent, and basically making sure we have a community of people that want to push the boundaries or change the narrative, right? The status quo over here is not enough. We want to actually start competing on that level. And for me, the community is the right place to do this, because usually when you are surrounded with people that are not like-minded like you, they are not pushing, it's very easy for you to give up on whatever you are working on, mainly because it's very daring, it's really big. So the community is basically there to make sure people of that caliber, is like you are surrounded with people of that caliber. You know you can't fail, maybe, or you can't give up because you see someone doing amazing in their respective field. And we are also doing like an accountability thing where we set like quarterly goals to make sure that everyone is basically doing whatever they said they will do. And that's what we are doing. Yeah, we have like a website. You can basically go on the website and send your request. But then we also do screening before you join the community. Yes, the community, you do a lot before you join. And your stay in the community is not guaranteed. It's basically based on your works and what you do. That will help basically maintain you in the community. So yeah, that's what I wanted to touch on. And hopefully I get to see more people like applying for these things.
Yeah, Joe.
Yeah, fantastic. And shameless plug. So we have an upcoming career bootcamp. Get into remote jobs in 24 hours. The 24 hours is literally 2 hours per week over 12 weeks, where we show you the ins and outs of everything. So it's an async and synchronous bit, but then basically that's like the dedication that you're going to have. And if you are really up for it, I'm putting an FAQ in the chat. You can just follow the link, or you can get in touch with me online. And we'll let you know. But it's starting in February, so we'll keep you posted on that. So yeah, done.
All right. Thank you guys for joining in. The group was full to the point that some people were asking me to take some people off so they could join. Unfortunately, we could sit only 150 people. Hopefully we expand it. But anyway, I hope that you got some utility out of this conversation. Please, if you don't mind, please help me. please go on the LinkedIn like post, the main post that we made for this particular event, and then share your honest feedback. If this helped you, please don't mind, just tell us. Tell us. I'm trying to get the. Let me just put the link on here so that you can just click it directly, and then yeah. But share your honest feedback with us. Hopefully we meet next month with another topic. Thank you all for joining in. So I just place the link in the chat, so you can just click on it and then share your honest feedback. All right, thank you guys, and see you on the next one.
All right.
Bye.
All right.